So we're here with Elania Nanopoulos, and we are going to go through her journey. She was with us at Stockholm Supermarket Art Fair. And hi, Elena.
Hi, Elena.
Are we going to start by saying, how we are related? And I want to ask you about your journey, how you found out about the San Francisco Art Institute. And then because of you, I found out about the Art Institute. So our mothers are sisters.
Yes, our mothers are sisters, and just like in my big fat Greek wedding, we have Elena, Lena, Eleni,
right?
Lenaki. Every one of the sisters has one daughter named after our grandmother, Eleni.
Right.
Yeah, we're first cousins. And I left Greece. My parents left Greece when I was 8 years old, and you had just been born.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we just saw each other periodically when we visited Greece. But as far as the Art Institute goes, I was going to school. I was going to the art school at Indiana University, and I had about 1 year left for my BFA, my undergraduate degree. And, I was on a kind of a track that was kind of chosen by me, by the faculty, where they were all, I think there was one woman, they were all Yale graduates. So there was kind of like this inside club. And they had told me that I was going to graduate school at Yale, because they liked my work and they had ins with the professors, etc. But at the time, there was a guy named Al Held, a painter who was the head of the department. And I didn't particularly like his work at the time, although since I've, gotten respect for him, and I think we would have gotten along really well, but I was really trepidatious about it. Also, I came from a very working class family. And I felt uncomfortable in the art world as it was. But, going to graduate school at Yale was not something I, really was pushing myself. It was kind of determined by the faculty that would be a good place for me. So I was kind of half-hearted about it. But Dale, my husband was in a band, and his band got a contract, a music contract in San Francisco. So we were and I said, hell yeah, let's just move to San Francisco. I still had a year to go. So we moved out here, and I was just fine with that. I thought it was great. And that's when I looked around, and I thought, wow, the Art Institute, that's wonderful. I'll fit in great. But when we got here, I realized that unlike IU, it was a private school, and I had to come up with a few $1,000s.
Cool.
It was just like $4,000. I forget what it was. So anyway, I worked, and I had a studio in the basement of the Art Institute, and basically I went between work to my classes with Sam Chakalian, was one of my teachers back then. And basically I lived in the basement of the Art Institute and went to class. So I didn't really socialize very much I wasn't part of the scene, but I was, I had a lot of privacy down there. So I could get I maximized my time there. And it was really wonderful. Great. I'm really glad I followed that path,
Great. So after that, what happened? How did it go with your work?
After that, I was waiting tables. I did some substitute teaching. I got some really great studio spaces for what now would be outrageous amounts. So I continued to work and, had I thought some really interesting work. Uh, but after a few years, I just did not see, it wasn't sustainable for me. Energy, on the energy level, um, I just couldn't live and be a painter. I didn't see how, for me, it was a way to make a living. I couldn't do it. And I worked full time and tried to do art. And after a while, I just didn't have the energy level to do it. Plus, anyway, life, the concerns of life took over, and little by little,
survival.
I kind of edged. I out of it little by little. I got some additional training. I went to to get a not a degree, but some graphic design training, and I was on the ground floor of doing digital work. I had a little Mac, and so anyway, so I got into graphic design. I still using my visual sense, which was really great. So it was a really good field, but in a lot of ways, it's a very constricted environment.
Yeah.
And really high pressure. So I was working like 14 hours a day. So, I kind of dropped out of it. That's how I was able to pay for my son's schooling and our house and everything. Yes. So I got consumed by life. And then 30 years later, I was able to start up again. At that point, there was no studio space around here I could afford. It's outrageous. So I'm working at home in one of the bedrooms.
So you live in Berkeley, right?
I live in Berkeley,
yes.
Yeah. And I would work when I had really good studio spaces. I think my mark, when I work, my mark is pretty big. I was working on large paintings. And unfortunately, a lot of them got destroyed in a fire. And then
tell me a little bit about that, about the fire in the studio. That was a turning point, I think, kind of.
You studio in downtown Oakland.
Yes, I remember that studio in Oakland, yes.
Yeah, so, that was a great space, and I think I got a lot of work done there. But, there were like 3 or 4 other artists, and some of them were actually older artists who taught at UC Berkeley, and I don't even remember the man's name now, but he had I don't know, at least half of his life's work there.
Oh my gosh. And what happened?
There was an electrical fire.
Oh my gosh. So the whole thing burned down, right?
What wasn't burnt was water and smoke damage,
I see.
So I lost a bunch of work there, but luckily I had a friend who was a photographer, so I have slides of a lot of them. And then I had another studio that there was some water damage. So anyway, I had large spaces, and I think it was great because my natural, like I said, mark when I paint is fairly wide. But now, now I have a small room, a small studio, and I'm finding out that I actually really like working smaller too. Especially with the, with more this kind of space I'm working in between painting and sculpture, kind of with the 3D elements of it, and the more iconic, like little icons. I find that I really I like the making of it so much. I'm not a painter, an expressionist painter, or somebody who truly loves working with color and with paint. I like making little things. Structurally, I like structurally big or little. I just like this exploring the materials, cutting them. I have a little workshop downstairs, and then using paint and the color in a more sculptural way. So I think after 30 years off, I've sort of found a different way that works for me working.
Wonderful. So just want to ask, how do you feel about your work now versus of how you were thinking and feeling about your work back then?
Can you explain a little bit more what you mean?
Like, I know that growing up, we are different people. We are full of experiences and different thoughts. But do you feel better? Do you enjoy more working now or back then?
Oh, as far as enjoyment goes, oh, well, it's painful both times. They're painful and enjoyable, of course. It's just something that you don't think in those terms. You just,
you just do it. Yes, definitely.
You're determined to do, but your concerns.
No, I mean afterwards, because not while doing it, because, it's not, I'm just saying for the feeling, the aftermath of how you are about your work now.
Well, I do think I enjoy it more now because I don't really give a shit.
Exactly, yeah. That's the good way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not, my concerns are not really formal in the sense.
Yeah.
And they're not really art world concerns. They're my little things that I need to overcome. And I, it's you're older, you go through, it's a progression that I think you have to go through, obviously, the early part to get to the point where you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And you realize that those concerns were valid and they brought you to this.
Yes.
I find myself way more tolerant of a lot of different art. And I don't think I'm very different in that. I think as you get older, you don't have those snap judgments.
Exactly. Yeah.
Way more tolerant. And you realize that nobody that does it on a regular basis is bullshitting you. Even, whether you like the work or not, the validity is...
the commitment.
It's there. I don't doubt the validity of anything that I see, really. But as far as my work, I mean, I think the challenges for me are ones that I've set up rather than art world concerns. And I mean, my particular challenge right now is in my work which is fairly political, and it's in a sensory way, but it's like, how can you name names, be direct, but yet not fall into propaganda, not fall into, given obvious answers.
Right.
How to have that kind of liminal gray area where...
Like the title you have at this wonderful piece that I love of yours, The Seed.
Oh, Seed, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to tell me a little bit about that, which is about it is the name of that girl from Palestine, right?
Yeah, I started doing, I wanted to do it for Hind Rajab. I think that's how you pronounce it, Rajab. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, not how, but exactly the imagery that I wanted. And, I arrived at the pieces through, when you work like that, you sort of, glue the pieces together, put them together, and then you have to tear them apart and put them back together. And that kind of shows that wear and tear kind of becomes part of the work. But I knew I wanted the seed, the imagery of the seed, the actual 3D imagery. And I knew I wanted the seed to burn with, like it was a dead seed, but there was fire inside. It was ready to sprout. And it's really funny because not once while I was making it did I think of it as a drop of blood. But people looking at it, and it's so obvious right now that that's how it comes across, but you get consumed by what's in your mind so much that you forget but it works, and it works on multiple levels because of that.
Yeah.
So, in that one I had specific imagery that I wanted, and like I said, I didn't want it to fall into propaganda or into political statements. I wanted my emotional reaction to show through the materials of the work. But at the same time, I wanted it to be direct.
Yes.
Direct, yet not not precise in that way.
The title says it. The title is really, like to the point.
To the point.
Anyway.
And I thought, and the other two pieces that were there, I had no idea. That was experimenting with the materials. And I had cut these things and was kind of just moving them around like puzzle pieces, and they kind of fell into place. Unlike seed, I did not have a specific endpoint.
Right.
And but and I think about the stuff that I'm doing recently, or the last couple of years, and I've realized when I was really young, I loved, I grew up in the Greek Orthodox Church, and I loved going to church. I mean, there's a certain religiosity to the work that I do now, and I realized I love going to church. I love because it's very mystical.
Yeah.
And it's very sensual in the sense that there's incense
and all the gold and the icons,
the chanting. It's really beautiful.
Byzantine,
The mysticism what drew me in. As I got older, I realized there was the dogma there, and that's when I say older, I'm talking like 8 or 9 years old. I realized, hey, wait a second. At that point, I was able to discard the dogma, but the mysticism,
it's always there.
Sexuality did not leave me. I'm sure it leaves others, but anyway, so that's kind of what has kind of blossomed more, I think, now rather than my early work. That's come more to the forefront.
Yeah, wonderful. This is great. You know that I love your work, and it was great having your work at the supermarket art fair. So, do you want to say something more here?
No, this is way more than I usually talk about myself. So I think we can leave it at that.
Okay. So I'm going to say thank you so much, Elena.
Oh, thank you. That looked like a great show, and I really loved the catalog.
Yeah, that was really, we enjoyed all of it there. It was really fun. And one more time, thank you so much, Elena, for being with us in the show. I'm Eleni Exarchou, and I'm interviewing Elania Nanopoulos for the Supermarket Art Fair in Stockholm.